Hello and welcome to my Berserker PVE guide. I'm going to be going over our skills, our imprints, our abilities, as well as our gear. Now the first skill I'd like to go over is Hurricane Slash. Hurricane Slash is a bit tricky because it doesn't say it in the skill description, but this first hit here, that's Hurricane Slash. But then this spin right here is Tornado. Now Tornado is really good because you can cancel it into other skills and it's really good for cleaning trash mobs and so on. Never Die is the next skill I like to go over. Never Die is really good. It's really clutch. It's one of our clutch skills because with Never Die, it really only comes up in arena, mainly in arena, a few times in raid, but mainly arena. In arena is really clutch because he immediately gives you 20% HP, and you really need that because arena they hit super hard, as opposed to Life Relay, where Life Relay does give you some HP, but it's not as much and it's not as clutch. So I'd rather invest my points into Never Die instead of Life Relay, and it's 5 points to level up and so on. It's not worth the amount of points, especially when you can use those points to put into other skills. The next skill is Rage Extension. It makes your rage meter go from 100 to 150. That's really good to have. Next skill here is Tornado Smasher. Tornado Smasher is a must-get skill. It's a 6-second cooldown, and when you have the top imprint, it gives you 2 additional slashers, making the skill go from an average DPS skill to an above average DPS skill. Gigantic Swing is kind of meh. It does give you an iframe, but it doesn't do that much damage, and it's a 50-second cooldown. The animation is really long, even with max attack speed. So that skill is kind of not so good, especially when you have other iframes such as Dash, Creator Leap, and Outrage. You have those 4 iframes, and Dash has a 2-second cooldown, so you can use that instead and cancel Dash into another skill to continue DPSing. More DPS than you would have gotten from Gigantic Swing. Drive Slasher is decent. It doesn't do that much damage. It does apply bleeding when you're in Bloody Roar because it creates a tornado, but it's not worth the points, especially when you can use those points into Spyro Strike as well as Tempest Blade. Those 2 skills are worth the points, and they also have 5% chance to apply bleeding anyways. Now, Spyro Strike is an interesting skill because the way the skill works, I only ever use it to get behind the boss. So let's say I come out through the portal, I run towards the boss, I use it here, and I continue DPS. That's at most I'll use the skill. Unless I'm fighting boss, when the boss you can only attack from the front, and you can't go behind it, you can go in front of it, you only stay attacking from the front. Buzzsaw in this scenario, like if I'm DPSing and I use this, I have to run behind it again to continue getting back attack crits. This is min-maxing, but it's really, to me, it matters. Because I don't like going like this to go behind the boss again to reposition and continue DPS and doing my rotation. And it's really rare that does happen anyways, because the times it does happen, the boss is probably already dead, because the way this game is structured, most things die within 10 to 20 seconds anyways, besides raid boss, which is probably a couple of minutes, and it is useful. So you can use Spyro Strike as a movement ability just to reposition or go behind the boss. Especially if the boss turns, you can use that skill to turn behind the boss again. One of the main stages in raid is the dragon. You can use it to jump behind the dragon. When he turns around to you, you use it again to get behind it, and it does a lot of damage. So it is a good skill. Tempest Blade is a solid skill. It applies a 5% chance to apply bleed. Solid skill. Infinity Glaive is our hardest hitting skill behind Mad Rush. Mad Rush is a 1-minute cooldown, but Infinity Glaive is a 15-second cooldown, and it does insane amounts of damage, especially when you have that top imprint. When you have the top imprint, it hits at 2 additional times. So right here, see, it does 2 additional hits. But keep in mind that when you use this skill, if you hold any of the direction, so if you're left, right, up, down, whatever direction, the skill will only hit 1 time. So you see that? It only hits 1 time. So keep that in mind. If you're killing the boss, it could if you kill it in the first hit, it could juggle the next 2 hits, or maybe you do need this extra 2 hits. So just keep it in mind, depending on what you're fighting, if you want to juggle it or not. It's a good skill to have. and it also keep you in the animation lock after you use the skill. It's like a second animation lock where you can't really do anything. If you let the 2 hits hit, you're stuck in like a 1 second window where you really can't do much. Additionally, this skill also gives you a 50% crit damage. This here says armor bonus rate, 51%. This really means crit damage. So let me show you here. My crit damage is 532%. If I use the skill, 582%. Now, my crit damage goes up by 50% for 5 seconds. It's really good for bursting. You can use Infinity Glaive into Mad Rush, Infinity Glaive into Full Breaker, into Tornado Smash, any skill you want to use. Doesn't matter. You just know that you're getting a 50% crit damage boost. Full Breaker. Full Breaker does have a higher percentage damage than Infinity Glaive, but because of the top imprint, which I'll go over in a bit, it hits 2 additional more times, whereas Full Breaker doesn't get that benefit until your HP is below 50%, which again, I repeat, is really rare for HP to be below 50%, because you have Bloody Road, which gives you 12% increase, 12% HP increase, your passive, which keeps your HP up, or you can get Life Relay, but again, you're not getting hit enough in this game because everything dies so quickly that for you to go below 50% HP is really rare. And the skill also mentions Earthquake. Increases damage to Mega Earthquake while in Bloody Roll, and Rage is below 50%. This is the Earthquake that they're referring to. That's the Earthquake. Those extra additional hits on the ground. That's Earthquake. Let me do that again. Right, that's Earthquake. Now, if you do the skill correctly, you'll get the Upward Slash, which does a lot more damage. It does the same amount of damage as the initial hit. So that's good to do. So whenever you do Full Breaker, make sure that you're doing the upward swing motion so you can get the full benefit of the skill. Mad Rush, max it out. It's an insane skill. It does insane damage, and it also reduces damage taken by 90%. So you can face roll. When you use this skill, you can face roll. But one thing that the skill doesn't mention is that it gives you damage rate stacks. So right here, my damage rate 284. But when you use Mad Rush, you see these stacks that you get at the bottom? They stack up to 6 times. So if I use it again, I'll get the 10-second Mad Rush buff. But the best part about it is that it stacks. So even after you get that 10-second duration buff, it resets. The damage goes on, but you get the buff again. So by the time your Mad Rush ends, I'm at 3 stacks and a full 10-second stack. So if I use this skill combined with Infinity Glaive, I'm getting insane amounts of damage input. It's increasing my damage rate, and my crit damage being increased for the duration of Mad Rush. Bloody Road is solid skill, increases your attack speed by 12%, crit chance by 12%, HP recovery by 12%. 100% uptime buff, use it with the top imprint. Creator Elite falls into the same situation as Gigantic Full Swing. It's a long second cooldown. It's a 30-second cooldown every time you land a skill. It is an iframe, but it's not worth, in my opinion, because the animation is so long that it's just not. It's not worth it, and it's not worth the points where you can put the points elsewhere and get better results. Maelstrom is our vacuum. This vacuum is amazing. An example is, for example, when you're farming, let's say Golem. You run towards the middle, you use vacuum, you kill the mobs, you go to the boss, you kill the boss. Or in Arcadia building, that first room, you run into the middle, you use vacuum, go to the next room, kill the mini boss, go to the next room, kill the boss. It's really good for wiping rooms instantly. A good DPS skill, max it out. Battle Crash is really a really long animation skill, and I don't recommend it. And even though it says damage increases rate by 50% while charging, it's not worth. And it actually reminds me, this skill Single Shot, I was actually testing it prior to recording this video. It says that it increases your damage by 50%. Now, it doesn't do anything at all. That skill is a lot. It's a scam. Let me show you. So if I take off all my gear, you can see that my damage rate is 39%, 39.64. If I use it, it was 22.64. If I use it, my damage rate doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. So I just wanted to test that skill before starting the video, because I saw it, I was like, but it doesn't work as intended. So that's that. Burning Sense, get this skill. It helps keep your buff 100% uptime. Outrage, really strong skill. It lasts 30 seconds. It doesn't say it in the description, but if you press the button again, is when it deactivates. Before, in the old EME version, the outrage automatically happened once the timer went down to 0. But now you have to press the button again for it to actually activate. Right? So that's good to know. It's also good to know to like stun bosses. There's not really situations where you actually have to stun the bosses. But when the situation does come up, if you press the button again, it does stun the boss for 5 seconds. So keep that in mind. And the main reason why I'm using this skill is because of the buff that you gain from it. Now, a little tricky part that a lot of people don't know is, let's say for example you're partying with somebody, you can actually anti-cancel this skill in the portal. So let's say you're in the portal already and somebody's about to walk in, or as they're walking in, or they're in the portal, the moment they touch the portal and you press the button, you would get the buff. So you don't have to go through the whole animation, because it will do the animation in that black screen. It will do the animation for you. So you don't have to go through it when you walk in the room and then do the animation, waste time. It's just a good little trick to do that not a lot of people know. Now, one thing here that I'm really upset about, and I wish they would change it about the game, is the fact that you automatically get these EX skills right here. These EX skills are not good, and I'll explain why. Mad Rush does insane amounts of damage, as I demonstrated. But when you have the Awakening, when you have the tab buff up, the skill becomes this. Whatever this is. This skill does no damage. As opposed to Mad Rush itself, which does insane amounts of damage. You automatically get the skill when you put 1 point into it, and it forces you to get this level 5. It's really annoying, especially when I'm trying to burst and I get that. It becomes annoying. In the case you guys were wondering, that circle that you saw on the ground, that yellow circle, you get that circle from the square bracket gear, which I'll explain later on in the video. But that's where you get that circle buff right here. I'll explain it in a bit. Same thing for EX Tempest Blade. It doesn't do that much damage. It takes you out of tab. It's not good. I really wish that I didn't have to get these skills, that I can just not do it, but it automatically levels it to level 5. So there's nothing I can do about that. Tornado Smasher, Spyro Strike, Tempest Blade, and so on. All these skills, you max it out to 5. They give you all these points. Use them all on these skills. The reason why I didn't max out Awaken, I was choosing between Tornado Smasher and Maelstrom. I chose Tornado Smasher because it's a 6-second cooldown, and you're able to use it more often than you are Maelstrom. Because Maelstrom is a 90-second cooldown, use it once, as opposed as Tornado Smasher is a 6-second cooldown. It does a lot of damage with the imprint. It does a lot of damage. You could do it more times than you can Maelstrom, especially in a boss fight, and in raid fight specifically, not in boss fights. Other bosses, you could do any other skill and they'll die immediately. And keep in mind that Tornado Smasher, when you have the Awakening version, you can go really far, or you can stay in place. I'll show you here. So if you're holding back, you stay in place. That's good to know. Now, going on to the imprint, which makes the class insanely good. You want to get the top imprint, which is Endless Rage. Endless Rage gives you a lot of damage. It gives you 80% crit damage, 100% damage rate increase, and max attack speed. 20% attack speed, max attack speed. And 20% attack power and bloody roll by 20%. So this is giving you the attack power translates to damage rate. Is a typo. So you're getting 120% damage rate increase, and then 80% crit damage. You're getting 200% damage increase, and crit damage cap is 800%. So you're not gonna get negative returns. You're gonna get positive returns on the skill, depending on how geared you are. But for my gear where I tested, the damage rate buff is insane and is 100% uptime. Now keep in mind this skill also resets your hardest hitting skills, being Infinity Glaive, Full Breaker, and Mad Rush. Destroy, I'm not sure what skill Destroy is. I've tested all the skills and I'm not sure what skill Destroy is. I don't know if that's another Awakening. I'm not sure. But from what I've seen, this skill doesn't exist in our arsenal. Now, Mega Earthquake is situational. This situation will never come up unless your HP is below 50%. But for when it does happen, you're getting another 100% damage increase. It's rare that it happens, but it does happen. Now for the high imprints, you want to get Infinity Glaive because of the 2 additional hits that you're getting when you use Infinity Glaive. It makes it so that it's hitting harder than Full Breaker. Full Breaker does have a higher percent total damage, but Infinity Glaive when you use it is doing so much more DPS, and is a lower cooldown skill that it just out DPSs Full Breaker in the long run, especially because it's a quicker animation. Comparing top imprint to the bottom imprint, the middle imprint is for defensive purposes. It's not really useful. But the bottom imprint, it's not that it's terrible, but the fact that the top imprint gives you so much more. For example, let me equip it so I can demonstrate it. Let me show you here. Okay, so summon mob. Okay, now you immediately lose your max attack speed. That's the first thing. You lose max attack speed, your Mad Rush is not hitting as fast, which means you're not doing as much damage as you would with the other build. That's the first thing to compare. Second thing is you're losing all the other damage buffs that I was talking about earlier, and the resets from when you use Bloody Roar. You also lose having 100% uptime on Bloody Roar. I'll show you. You eventually run out of buff. Of course, the same argument you can make. No dungeon lasts as long for you to have the buff up 100% of the time. But in raid, where it does come up, it is a factor, and you're losing your rage buff twice as fast. So even if I buff immediately, the cooldown doesn't keep up with the skill. This is just eventually you'll run out. Eventually the buff will run out, and you're not getting the buff that you would get, the damage that you would get. So you lose damage, now you're unbuffed. And when you're unbuffed, you lose one of your movement abilities. Now you can't R&B because you're on that cooldown. It's not worth. That's the negative side. Now for positive side, you do get Tornado Smasher 2 times. You get it 2 times, and you get Buzzsaw 2 times. So you go in front of the balls, back to behind the balls. That's really good. You get Mad Rush. You get all these other skills. But one of the important things about this skill set is the Spyro power, is where all the damage comes from. Now, I am not a huge fan of building up to my DPS. I'd rather just walk in and kill something. Like, for example, every time you R&B for 1 second, you gain a buff stack. You see the yellow bar right here at the bottom? Every 1 second, you get a buff. At 9 stacks, you get the Spyro power, which gives you 200% crit damage. Excuse me, 100% crit damage for 6 seconds. This is 100% uptime. It is 100% uptime, and you can stack more buffs on top of it. So now, if I R&B again, you see that I have the blue buff here, the 100% crit damage. I can continue building stacks, even on whiff. Even on whiff, I continue to build stacks. And if you stop at 8 stacks, you can keep that. And as long as you don't use Tornado Smash or Buzzsaw or Maelstrom, you can keep these skills. You can keep the buff, and you can keep all these damage procs. But if you use it, it resets again, and you have to build it up again. So I'm not a fan of building up to DPS. You do gain all these stacks. For every stack, you get 20% damage increase. So you get 8 stacks, so you get 8 times 2, that's 160. You get 160% damage increase plus 100% crit damage. It is good in theory. In theory, this is really, really good. But realistically, nothing lasts this long besides raid boss. Even on raid boss, nothing lasts this long for you to actually want to do this build. On raid boss, you can see that you'll run out of buff. You run out of Bloody Roar, it will go on cooldown. So there you're losing DPS. You're losing DPS, and it's not worth, especially because every time you R&B, every 1 second R&B, you lose 10 seconds of Maelstrom. Maelstrom it reduces the cooldown of Maelstrom by 10 seconds. It gets really good in theory, but in actuality, it's not as beneficial as you think it would be. So that's something that's not really worth. Now, if you're able to keep this buff, Bloody Roar, up 100% of the time, then maybe it's worth. But not here. It's not. This is what I mean here. You lose damage. Now you gotta do all this other stuff. You don't have 100%. You don't have max attack speed. You don't have the proc. It starts losing its value. So that's why I recommend the top imprint versus the bottom imprint. Ability, as I mentioned before, Tornado has Hurricane Slash has 2 skills, being Hurricane Slash and Tornado. I was testing it to see if Hurricane Slash would actually affect the damage, but it doesn't. So that's that. Tornado is good to have for when you're clearing trash mobs, as I mentioned earlier. It's really good for clearing trash mobs. That's really it. So if you're doing whatever you're doing, any dungeon that has like a lot of trash mobs, so the soul gem hunting place, that's good. It's good to use that. You just run around holding R&B. You don't really have to do much. But other than that, it's kind of meh, which is why I recommend spending your points on Tornado Smasher, Matter Rush, and Infinity Glaive. This is the old name from EMV version, by the way, which is why I know this affects. These are 2 different skills, Hurricane Slash, and Tornado. That's how I know that it's 2 different attacks. Okay. Now to go on to the gear. The gear for Berserker, I recommend using One Piece Elemental Tuner and Rest Square Bracket. Now, I did mess up. I messed up here, but I already committed. So, and it costs way too much money. Yes, I have 315 mil, but it costs way too much money that at this point it's not worth for me to do. But for other people that are gearing, I recommend 100%. I recommend getting Elemental Tuner boots for lightning. Now, the best element is poison. It's not fire. I read a guide that said it was fire. That fire was best. I then tested it myself after the fact and found out that poison was better. Now, why does this matter? The reason why it matters is because if you get full piece Elemental Tuner, it does a lot of DPS. Elemental Tuner does a lot of DPS. The 5 set does a lot of damage. But Square Bracket gives you boosts on each part of your gear. Where I made the mistake was that I got Elemental Tuner helmet for fire because I was told and believed that fire was best. But after testing, it is not the best, and it's not worth getting helmet. It's worth getting Elemental Tuner boots. I know this is a bit scrambly, so I'm going to try to break it down even more. You want Elemental Tuner boots because Elemental Tuner boots gives you lightning, but you only lose movement speed. Whereas helmet gives you 15% crit rate. So that 15% crit rate is really useful. This will make it go from 60. Well, from 75, which again, you also lose from one bottom imprint because you can't have 100% uptime. You get some 75 to 15, it'll put me at 90% crit rate. That's close to 100%, which you're critting a lot of the times, more than you would think. So I recommend if you're gearing up, get boots. Now going back to Elemental Tuner gear set, it loses damage compared to Square Bracket because you're collecting all these orbs. Even if you have the evolved version where the orbs come to you, let me see if I can proc an orb here. 4% chance to proc orb. I usually just R&B here to spin and get the orb right away. There you go. That's the orb. It's a homing orb. It comes to you. It's good. You got a stack. It stacks up to 2 times. It's really good. And it only affects one of your element. And the element depends on what enchantment you put on your sword. On my sword, you can see that I put fire. Now, boots give lightning, gloves give dark, and so on. Pants give poison, chest gives ice. With Square Bracket, you can see here that it increases my crit damage by 24%. Increases my damage rate by 12%. My attack speed is not useful. Oh, I was also testing this, the crushing attacks, which is another reason why I got this skill earlier, because it's the only skill that we have that's crushing. It doesn't proc this either. So this is a typo. This is a typo, or it doesn't work. Because from crushing, we only have these 2 skills. We only have 2 skills for crushing, and it does not apply. It does apply the attack speed, which is these buffs you see down here. It does apply the attack speed, but it does not apply that crushing buff. That buff I do not get. I do not receive that buff. Pants movement speed and the sword was the one makes the whole set become full circle. It makes it even better because instead of it giving me 24% crit damage, it's giving me 50% more. So it's giving me 36% crit damage. So you can see here, let me show you, where's my crit damage? So 432%. You'll see the buff comes off, okay? My crit damage is at 348. 378 when you equip it, and then the buff will come in, so 378, I'll go to, waiting for it to proc, here you go, 432. So it's giving 50% to each of these. So these pants are giving 12, 50% of 12, 6, so you get 18%, and so on. So it makes the gear, just for existing, you're getting all these stat benefits that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, making it that much better. Whereas Elemental Tuner does give you these stats, but you have to work to it. And also, Square Bracket is also giving you this tap buff. Increases hit damage. I'll show you. The tap buff gives you exactly increase attack power, damage speed, and movement speed by 10% with an area effect. Critical damage increased by 20% for 10 seconds every 10 seconds. That buff is amazing. It is 10 seconds, cooldown 30 seconds, so every 20 seconds you have to buff back up. And realistically, it out DPS's Elemental Tuner, making it the best set. Making Square Bracket the best set. And for accessories, you get dirty cleaners. Dirty cleaners are the best. This is all pre-mythic gear. Pre-mythic gear, the gear changes a bit, but for now, Square Bracket is the best. And if you don't want to lose the movement speed, I said you lose movement speed or attack speed. As long as you're using the top imprint, you can sacrifice the attack speed because you don't get the crushing unless they fix it. You don't get the crushing. Therefore, you can either replace your gloves or your boots. That's completely up to you because you do have max attack speed, which is 225%. So there's my guide. I'm sorry if I slurred my words a bit. I am a bit nervous while recording this, but this is definitely the go-to if you want to gear your Berserker. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know in the comment section below. You can add me as a friend in game, mail me, message me. My in-game name is Shadoodoo. Don't ask me where I got that name. It was my name. But thanks for watching, and again, if you have any questions, let me know. So thank you. Later.